So thanks for joining us today. We're excited to take you on this journey with us in the next hour. So let's get started. So my name is Ray Bestie, and I'm the Principal AI Strategist here at Sikich. My role at Sikich involves working with internal and external customers around all things AI. I focus on helping our internal practice areas get the most out of AI, as well as preparing them to do so for our customers. I also work directly with customers to help guide them on their AI journey. I'll be your presenter today with the assistance of my esteemed colleague, Tyler. Tyler, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tyler Landers, and I'm part of the data and AI team here at Sikich. As an engagement manager, I work with both clients and our project teams to make sure we deliver solutions successfully and our clients stay happy. All right, as we flip to the next slide, Ray's going to give us a quick run through of today's agenda, and our journey will begin here.
And here we have the high-level agenda for today's adventure. The overall objective of our presentation is to introduce everyone to a framework that we believe will help guide you towards the successful deployment of AI. Tyler and I have chosen to take a slightly different approach to your standard slide-driven webinar. Yes, we will have slides to frame the discussion for each topic we intend to discuss, but those slides will act mainly as a summary of our primary objective at that moment in our journey. The actual content of our presentation will be more of a conversation between us and includes not only the basis of our framework, but also some real-world examples and use cases to hopefully spark ideas that can demonstrate the art of the possible. We'll begin, and we will be using the metaphor of orienteering as Tyler guides us through our journey with specific questions, comments, and realizations, and as I answer those questions and bring light to the technical and practical usage of AI. Tyler, before we head out on our journey, let's get started with some statistics.
Yeah, so many webinars start by highlighting some critical statistics. So here are a couple of interesting stats to get us started today. First, did you know that 43% of dogs are big fans of AI, while 72% of cats are unbothered by it or really don't care? And additionally, when it comes to webinar attendees, it's estimated that 98% of the audience is genuinely intrigued by the subject matter, which today is AI, while the other 2% are here just because someone told them to attend and bring back some notes. Well, these are obviously silly and fictitious stats here, but all jokes aside, today's discussion is about cutting through the hype around AI and getting to the real value that AI can bring to our work. As Ray mentioned, we'll be using the metaphor of orienteering to guide us through today's discussion. So in the spirit of orienteering, let's grab our backpack and our compass and get our journey underway.
So let's get started with visualization. Imagine you're out in the wilderness, tasked with finding your way to a destination with only a map and a compass. This is what implementing AI can feel like. It's challenging, sure, but achievable with the right prep. Our Sikich AI framework, which we dubbed Orienteering Your Way Through Your AI Journey, is designed to help navigate this process. It's about understanding the terrain of your business environment, plotting a clear course for AI adoption and choosing the right tools, and adapting as challenges arise. By focusing on these steps, you can effectively integrate AI, stay aligned with your business objectives, and ultimately reach your goals successfully. This framework will be the foundation of our discussion today, providing practical steps for you to guide your AI journey.
Yeah, and Ray, before we go much further here, can you explain a bit more about why you compare navigating the AI journey to orienteering, and why does this particular analogy really work so well?
Well, I do get that question, why orienteering? And, as a former Boy Scout leader and having been in the wilderness with a map and compass with a bunch of scouts trying to figure out, how do we get to a particular position without the use of their phone, I can attest to the need for proper prep and having the right tools and knowing how to use those tools. So I believe that orienteering, which is just navigating between points with a compass and map, and implementing AI both require careful planning, adaptability, and the right tools. In orienteering, you need a map and a compass and kind of an idea of where you're going. In AI, you need a clear strategy, well-defined objectives, and the appropriate tools to navigate the complexities of AI adoption.
Yeah, okay, I think I'm following you here. We need a plan to get where we want to go. which makes sense. Ray, one initial question I do have for you is kind of along this AI journey, how can we prepare for the unknowns that we will kind of undoubtedly face?
Well, yeah, I mean, you think about an orienteer that is planning the process, and they're constantly uh, aware of where their surroundings are, and they need to adjust for obstacles. And businesses must be ready to adapt their approach as they integrate AI tech into their work. It's really all about setting direction, being prepared to adjust your course as needed, and having the skills to interpret the data and insights that AI might provide.
All right. So, as you mentioned earlier, kind of step one in the framework is mapping the terrain. So, Ray, can you start by helping us understand the current landscape of AI today? And more specifically, I want to know about not only the key opportunities with AI, but also the challenges that we should also be aware of.
So challenges and landscape. I think one of the reasons we're all here today, and if we look at the current landscape, I think you can say it's one of rapid evolution. AI has this potential to transform our business, and by automating a bunch of routine tasks that we probably don't want to be doing anyway, and enhancing the analysis of data that we're doing, but making it better, and providing deeper insights to the things that we're doing. I think the number of opportunities is kind of endless. AI can analyze entire data sets rather than just a sample, because that's all we had time for before. It can identify issues and anomalies faster, and hopefully improve the actual accuracy of the findings of what we are doing with it.
Yeah. Ray, are there concerns we should keep in mind here?
Concerns. We'll be fine. There's no worries. Well, maybe a few worries, so let's cover those today. I'd like to mention a couple of them. The first is this fear of job displacement. When this thing first came out 2 years ago with ChatGPT and all that, all the prognosticators were like, "Oh, everybody's going to lose their job," and today still people are worried about AI replacing their job or role.
Yeah, this one's really common, right? I see articles all the time titled something like kind of predicting which jobs will be most likely replaced by AI and so on and so forth. So, Ray, what do you think about these predictions?
But every change in technology has some change to the jobs that are available, and this is going to be no different. But I really think AI, currently at least, is meant more to augment our capabilities rather than replace them. I think that's why you see products such as Copilot called Copilot rather than Captain. You know, the concept of a Copilot that assists you rather than replacing you, I think that's currently a more accurate way to look at things. Now, another challenge we should talk about is ensuring the reliability of AI generated insights. You've probably heard this already many times, that AI models tend to be biased or can be biased if they're not trained with representative data. So I think we just need to be aware of these challenges, and it's a balance. You got to balance the opportunities that are available to enhance quality and efficiency, and then work with how to mitigate those particular issues.
Yeah, I like what you said there about humans being the pilot and AI being sort of the co-pilot that's there to help. I think that might resonate well with people. It resonates well with me. Um, all right, Ray. So next, I want to talk about a specific use case or example for a minute. So could you explain how AI can be utilized like, at a company? So let's say, for instance, a bank that's assessing something like high risk loans. Okay. How does AI help identify risks that might have been overlooked by more, let's say, traditional methods?
Well, I think this kind of falls into a category of transactional type of things. So you think about anything that's kind of high transaction, and there's only so many hours in a day, and you usually traditionally today can't really go and analyze every single record because there's not that many hours in a day. So with AI, you can analyze a much higher percentage, if not entire data sets, so that you can identify patterns that you couldn't otherwise identify, and anomalies more completely.
Yeah. So in this scenario with these loans, right? Like, what specific insights does AI actually provide that make a difference?
Well, I think if you consider what a bank would do with the loan and you think about the things that might be flagged as not being so good, is a loan maybe being out there below prime, or maybe if it's above the legal lending limit. And then you have to look at factors about each individual. What's their borrower history and how good are they with their repayment patterns and other indicators like that. So to do that one by one for every single record takes a lot of time and it's tedious to do. But if AI can be instituted to do that more quickly, it can give a bigger picture, a better picture, a more complete picture of the risk landscape, and allows you to focus efforts on higher risk areas.
Hmm. All right. Yeah. Yeah. I can actually see how that would be pretty helpful. All right. Let's keep moving here. So at step two in our framework, we've got setting your course. So Ray, as we talk about this, I suppose this is really about goal setting. So, how can we effectively set goals for AI adoption, and why is it important that these goals align with our actual business objectives as well?
I think AI is no different than anything else we do. We want to set a goal, and thinking back to those Boy Scout days, and you're on a path, and if you don't set a waypoint to where you think you're going to be going, and it's dark, then maybe you walk off a cliff, and let's not talk about that. Or maybe it takes 4 hours to travel somewhere that should have taken you 30 minutes to get to. So maybe let's not do that. Setting goals is crucial to ensuring that the integration of AI adds real value. Just like setting your waypoint and orienteering, we need to define specific, measurable objectives for each project. And what do I mean by that? It could be improving efficiency with certain processes. It took a long time to do this. Now it takes less time. Maybe the quality of the insights that we're getting with our standard reporting isn't deep enough. So we want to enhance the quality of those insights. And maybe those repetitive tasks just are taking way too long. So we want to reduce the time spent on those repetitive tasks.
Yeah, I know you've been working a lot with our auditing practice here at Sikich, Ray, and especially with helping reduce time spent on those repetitive tasks, like you mentioned. But can you describe some other ways that AI could assist in an auditor's role?
It has been interesting in my role. I'm a technologist by history and background. I'm not an auditor. And so understanding what individuals do in their everyday is a key part to really understanding all this. So talking with auditors and some of the things that they do, they're developing test procedures and determining sample sizes that need to be done. And that's stuff they really don't want to be doing, but it's important to be done and it takes a lot of time. So, with today's tools, they can use those tools to help recommend the optimized testing steps and create the test procedures, at least a draft of them, and automatically calculate the relevant, sample sizes, or maybe just have it analyze all the available data and then allow them to do what they want to do. They want to be strategic analysts, not people who copy and paste things and create procedures and all this other stuff. So I think the point here is, anytime there's a vast amount of data that's just too much for a human to evaluate, let AI take on the job and provide insights. You still have to review them, but let them provide it so they can be done quicker. I think it's also important that AI initiatives that are pursued are not pursued in isolation. Have a plan to at least contribute to the overall success of the company. So, for example, if one of your business objectives is to, let's say, enhance compliance, AI can be used to automate that testing and ensure continuous monitoring. So it's really about breaking down the AI journey into, let's say, manageable phases, such as starting with a small pilot, learn from it, and then scale to other successful projects. Doing that will help mitigate the risk and ensure that each step actually adds value.
Yeah, so we could start small, but eventually we want to be doing kind of bigger and bigger AI projects. Ray, what can you tell us about managing the budget and resources, I guess, related to AI projects in particular?
Well, AI is kind of popular right now. So maybe your big boss has gave you a blank check and as much resources as you want. Probably that's not the case. And so you really need to manage this well. And you need to consider the budget restraints and resource allocation. You only have so many people and so many hours. All aspects of that are important to the project.
Yeah. Other aspects, right? Like what?
Well, if you think of, top of mind, I'd say, almost all these projects have some type of licensing or subscription costs associated with them. And especially subscription costs, that could be an ongoing cost to the project. So you got to obviously consider that. Now, since we're talking about AI models most of the time, you've got to deal with the cost to train and or fine tune them if you decide not to use the out of the box models that are out there. And then there's these things called tokens, and how many of you use when using a particular model will determine the cost, and they vary depending on the functionality of each model as well. And of course, there's all the other stuff that a normal tech project would have. I think the key point here, again, is to start small with a proof of concept type project, get constant feedback to see is it actually doing what you expect it to do, determine if there's any showstopper walls, and do that before it completely blows your budget. That is key, I think, to keeping these projects from getting away from you. Now, AI has a lot of really cool and interesting things about it, and it's very easy to go down a rabbit hole that has nothing to do with the strategic vision of the project you're actually working on. So it's really, really important to keep focus on the objective of each project.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Ray. Um, okay, I want to talk about a practical example here. So let's say how AI could be used in common everyday business processes. So let's discuss a common finance team process. Can you give us an example of how AI could be, or maybe is already being used in processes such as like bank reconciliations? So this seems to me like an area where AI could help a lot. So how does or could AI change the role of people that are actually doing these reconciliations today?
When you think about, if you have a checkbook, you've got to reconcile your statement, and any company that has banks is going to have to do this. And Sikich is no different than that. We also, of course, we sell and implement ERP solutions, so customers are constantly having to do this kind of work as well. And doing that specific task of bank reconciliations involves a lot of manual work. You got to get the data first into some format. You got to then match the transactions, determine if there's any discrepancies, and then you got all the reports you got to generate. So with AI, much of that work could be automated by using the model's ability to do ad hoc analysis to compare that data. So it's kind of the same theme as we talked about with auditors. Finance people don't really want to be doing that work. They don't want to do all the tedious stuff. They want to become more of a reviewer of that and then make business decisions based on what happens. So if we can use a product like this, and there's products that are coming to market, such as Copilot for Finance by Microsoft, that are being purpose built to assist with that specific process. And that whole concept there, I think, leads us to our next topic, which is tool selection.
Yeah. Okay. So this is what you talked about earlier, right? Kind of reconciliations are one of those routine tasks that are obvious that AI can help with. And yeah, Ray, let's talk about tools. Now, when I think about orienteering in our journey, right? So far, we've determined kind of the landscape of our journey, kind of what our objectives are, and I guess now it's time to talk about our equipment selection, or I guess in this case, tool selection. So, Ray, what should we consider as we begin looking at comparing and selecting AI tools?
Well, whether you're building something physically, your construction, or you're doing anything in tech, usually there's some specialized set of tools that will assist, and varies by, are you building a house, or you're building a little fort, or what are you doing specifically with AI? So when we select a tool, we need to consider a bunch of things to ensure that the tool actually fits what we're trying to accomplish. So if we start off with data compatibility is one thing to consider. An AI tool should integrate with or be able to talk to the data systems and data types that we have in our company. So, for example, if you're, let's say, a Google shop, and so you're using, Google Drive, restoring a lot of your data, then maybe Google Gemini's product that's Copilot-like would be a good choice because it already has access to the data. Whereas if you're a Microsoft shop, then Microsoft's Copilot that interacts, natively with the Microsoft Graph, which is just your Office data, then probably that makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right, but beyond the data compatibility, right? Like, what else? Like, what other factors are really important?
Well, if you look at what OpenAI did with ChatGPT, oh, and shout out to OpenAI and ChatGPT on its 2-year anniversary this month. So, why did that happen? Why did it take off so quickly? I think about the fact that somebody like me in tech that's been here for too many years to count, all the way to my 86-year-old mother who doesn't, has trouble getting her phone to work. It works across that wide range of understanding because of the simplicity of the UI that really made it accessible to anyone. And I think that really contributed to its success. So on a similar note, I believe that ease of use is really important. We're not all data scientists, so the tool should have a user-friendly interface that allows us to use it effectively without needing to be technical experts. Now, another thing to consider is scalability. If we build a pilot project and it's successful, it might be useful if we could also scale up without changing tools. Now, another crucial point that I'd like to make is that it's really important to evaluate the specific problem that the AI tool is solving. So if the issue is around data analysis, then a tool with strong machine learning capabilities would probably be a good idea. So ultimately, the right tool should address the specific need of the team while being adaptable enough to grow with the organization's AI maturity.
Yeah. Yeah. So right, this AI can feel pretty, I guess, dense with all the technical jargon, right? Especially with the rise of generative AI lately, and we hear about large and small language models. So that's the LLMs and the SLMs, and all the functionality and token costs that come along with those. So how does all that factor into selecting like the right tool or the right platform?
Well, that's a good question, Tyler. If you've looked at any of the places that store these, like Azure AI tools from Microsoft and other places, Hugging Face, etc., there are literally thousands and thousands of models available across different platforms, and each of them has its own set of unique functionalities and price points. So when it comes to chatbots like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Meta, and all those, there's really a lot of variety. Choosing the right one depends on the specific task at hand. So I like to think of it like the Rolling Stone said, you can always get what you want, but you get what you need. The goal is to focus on the features that generally add value, not all the bells and whistles that you probably don't need. So, for example, there's no reason to pay for tokens on a model that's multimodal, meaning it can do sound and voice and text and summarize and all the analysis, if the only thing you're trying to do for that project is to summarize text. So it's kind of like that Liberty Mutual ad, only pay for what you need. So it's really about balance. Trial and error and benchmarking and a little experience can help us make sure we're getting the right features without overpaying. And so I think over time, it's a strategic approach that will guide you to the most efficient model for the job or models. You got to keep in mind, you don't need to select just a single model. So as you know, Tyler, I spend a good deal of my time evaluating new features for software for our internal use and for customers. And these vendors are all getting on the AI bandwagon and adding functionality for AI as quickly as they can. And I could also say, as of today at least, a lot of these AI enhancements are quote unquote coming soon. And the base functionality you actually experience in those products isn't really much different than just using ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot. Now that's going to change, obviously, in the coming months and years, but it's really important as you evaluate what's available today versus promised features that you make sure that you get what you pay for, and be aware that we're in this new era of let's add AI to everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ray, you and I are both at Sikich, right? And I know that early on, Sikich tackled a few different AI use cases. I know we were working to determine best practices around which technology to utilize, and you were working to prove out some kind of basic use cases of Gen AI. Ray, I know you've led those efforts, so could you tell us a little bit more about them?
Well, when this thing happened, like I said, 2 years or so ago, and we were looking at the initial claims of what generative AI could do, we felt in order to take advantage of it internally and also prepare to make the proper recommendations to customers, that we needed to tackle some projects internally to determine best practices, et cetera. So what we did is we looked at, where do we have good data without spending months and months to get data prepared, and we kind of landed on HR as probably a good repository of data because it's kind of has to be correct. So we built this thing called Sikich HR Navigator, and it was around our 400 or so documents that we already had. Need a little cleanup, not too much, that already exists in a SharePoint environment. So once we kind of determined, okay, this is what we're going to try to accomplish, we also wanted to try it with a bunch of different tools. So that way we can kind of see, which of those early tools was actually able to produce something that was functional in real world. So we first looked at the GPT builder in OpenAI's ChatGPT. That was kind of a logical, that was one of the early ones. We also looked at using Microsoft's Copilot Studio, and there's different methods of accessing knowledge in that product. You could upload a bunch of files one by one, or you could have it point to several different SharePoint folders. So we kind of did that twice, once with those techniques. And then we wanted to look at it more from a pro code, since those other first two were more of a no low code approach. So we looked at Microsoft's Azure AI Studio. Now, for our proof of concept vision for this project, we quickly discovered that the GPT builder from ChatGPT and their approach of having you upload individual files had some limitations and really required everyone to have a ChatGPT license, which could be a cost for a 2,000 person company. And so that, along with taking the next step and saying, well, we could access all the files in another repository using an API, and that was just a little bit more than we wanted to do for a proof of concept. So we kind of left that there and said, okay, let's look at Azure AI Studio. And it has access to not only OpenAI models, but a lot of different models. So we tried several of them, and it gave very good results. But because it's in AI Studio and you're being charged by the token usage, we felt that that was a little higher cost than the value of what we were getting. So we looked at the third final approach, which was Copilot Studio. And we looked at, again, uploading files versus SharePoint. And we ended up landing on the SharePoint as the better approach for at least this proof of concept. So why did we do that? Why did we come to that conclusion? The first was cost. Copilot Studio is currently priced by the number of transactions that you get a certain number per month for a fee versus the number of tokens. And the reason that matters is, and it's difficult when you're trying to estimate these projects and budgets for long-term on any AI project, is you don't know the number of tokens coming in or out because it's kind of variable by how people enter their prompts and what kind of results they get. So you have to estimate that, and it still was much more economical by transaction versus by number of tokens. We then looked at the ease and security of SharePoint folders. We already had all the security around the folders of making sure documents are only there that's supposed to be there, and that just made that easy. When we looked at long-term maintenance of the project, if I want to add a new something, I just have somebody add it to the folder, it automatically gets indexed, and I'm done. I don't need to go and manually republish anything. And then the third thing was we wanted to have it so that the results that came back from the bot had a link back to the original document so they can prove, whoever gets the answer could prove that it's actually accurate. And that was an out-of-the-box feature for that particular technique.
Yeah, Ryan, this went well, right? We were able to get the Sikich HR Navigator bot up and running. I just used it last week. As open enrollment time is upon us now. But Ray, were there any kind of let's say unforeseen or like bonus benefits of executing this one?
I'm always hoping for extra. You do something like this, and there's an obvious logical expectation of, well, we want the HR team internally to be able to focus more on complex issues and have the bot handle the common stuff 24/7. So that happened, and that was great. But then I kind of had a side desire here to have it spark interest. That whole concept of art of the possible. Have people I'd see and understand how we built it and what it was, so they can start thinking, well, if we did that for HR data, we've got tech service areas that have training manuals that are being built and best practice documents that they design and implementation guides. Well, what if we could take all that's scattered wherever it's scattered, put it into a logical, simple place, and have a bot that then could iterate on that knowledge the way we did with HR? And then our tax and advisory practice areas realize, well, we have all this regulation documentation and best practice documentation. What if we could do the same thing with that data? So needless to say, we've got all these people in our company now evaluating 30, 40 years of knowledge that we have, and trying to determine what else we could do with the same approach.
Yeah, it sounds like it sparked a good amount of good ideas. And well, I guess before we move on here, Ray, are there any other projects you want to mention real quick?
Well, that first project was about taking advantage of generative AI's sweet spot, which is dealing with unstructured data. You got PDF files and Word documents, et cetera. But a lot of the data in the world isn't just text somewhere. It's in a system that has a database, like a CRM system or HR system or ERP system, et cetera. So we wanted to come up with a different project. Instead of just summarizing or gaining insights, what if we just wanted to be able to use language understanding, which is a big part of ChatGPT and all these bots? If you think about it, it's trying to take what you prompt and understand the intent of what you were asking, and then query the database or system, a model, and return a result. So Copilot Studio, which is the tool we ended up using the last one, has an out-of-the-box language understanding model that understands common things like dates and numbers and street addresses. It also has the capability of replacing that out-of-the-box model with your own model using Azure AI's CLU module, which stands for Conversational Language Understanding. So we were able to train it to understand the many ways someone might ask about a service, which is the point of this project that Sikich provides.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And I guess I'll ask you, what key things did you learn with this one?
Well, besides how to use CLU, in Azure AI, that was kind of interesting. But, on my own personal journey of trying to become that AI first technologist, and meaning I want to think about AI for everything I do to take the tedium away, I realized during this project how effective generative AI can be doing those tedious tasks. So in this project, we determined we have over 500 services across our 35 plus service areas at Sikich. So if the intent of the project is, well, to determine intent, we knew we needed to come up with a way to somehow generate like 5,000 or more synonyms and utterances, which is what the CLU needs in order to be trained. And we needed to find out a way to do that in an efficient way, because I didn't want to have to enter and think through 5,000 of these. So by using Gen AI, describing what we do and the service names, we were able to generate these variations, instead of where this was starting to go was, this is just too much, let's kill the POC and we're done. It now makes it a possible thing, and we were able to use that as a reasonable task to accomplish.
All right. All right. Yeah, we're moving right along here. So, all right. So we've set our objectives, right? And we've got a good idea of our goals and kind of where they fit into the current world of AI. And we got some tools. Let's say our backpack for orienteering is full of gear, if you will. Now we need to determine how to best use those tools and learn how to use the gear. So Ray, let's jump back to what you mentioned earlier about Microsoft Copilot for a minute. Can you share how tools like Copilot have helped like both companies and individuals, and kind of what kind of training do people need to make sure like they know how to get the most out of tools like Copilot and AI in general?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, we're in a pilot for Microsoft 365 Copilot, and it does a bunch of things with all the different Office products. But for teams in particular, I think as you'll allude to in a minute here, that it's probably the most helpful part of that suite, because it takes, we're all in these meetings all the time, one after another. And during those meetings, by adding a co-pilot, it allows the meeting to become more of an interactive experience. So I can summarize, maybe I'm 5 minutes late, and I can summarize, hey, what happened while I was gone? Did anybody assign a task to me? And I can ask other kind of questions. So that's great during the meeting. But it also, because you're recording it, creates a transcript. And now you have a knowledge article, a piece of information that you can use after the meeting to ask questions, get meaningful summaries. And for me, the most important is create that valuable to-do list so that nothing falls through the cracks. So that whole concept not only frees us up during the meeting so we can actually focus on what's being said instead of having to sit there and try to type notes at the same time, it also allows us to focus on analyzing the outcomes of the meeting and planning next steps of the meeting. So, to put it simply, it just makes us a better consultant and a better project manager.
Yeah, right. You and I work together a lot, and this meeting insights feature is one of my favorite things in AI right now in my day to day. It might seem simple, but it really does save me a lot of time and energy kind of every day and every week. So Ray, don't want to forget this as far as like the training. Like what does that look like for effectively using AI?
Well, this will be a common theme today. To get the most out of this AI, you need really training that goes beyond just where's the menu choice and how do I push the buttons. And in order to do that, I think you need to understand what are the limitations of AI and what are its capabilities. How do I interpret the results I get from AI, and then how do I apply those effectively to all the things I do in my daily workflow? So what does that mean? It means investing in education programs, attending workshops, which you're kind of doing right now, collaborating with experts on AI, and uh, and making sure that you ensure that you have the skills needed to harness the full potential of AI. I really believe that becoming an AI organization could be a large cultural shift for some companies, and adopting a culture of continuous learning and improvement, if it's not already part of your culture, is key to becoming an AI first organization.
Yeah, AI first or okay. Okay. So Ray, it sounds like keeping AI top of mind is really important here. And I'm thinking about something like we do here at Sikich, like we've got our like ongoing weekly Copilot office hours we've got, and kind of like regular AI updates and trainings and that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, again, the theme here, I think, is this technology is not standing still, and it's not to the point where you can just take a class and you're good. You got to just keep taking more training and stay up on it.
Yep. Yep. Okay, Ray. So let's keep on navigating here. So along the journey, right, there's undoubtedly going to be obstacles that we're going to face and need to navigate around, if you will. So what are some of the challenges that we might face specifically when implementing AI, and how would you suggest that we could overcome them?
Challenges. There's a bunch of stuff we've got to get past, but I think two that are fairly commonly discussed that we can start off with are data quality and data quantity. You've probably heard this many times. AI is only as good as the data it uses. Garbage in, garbage out. So if your data is incomplete, inconsistent, or biased, it's going to lead to unreliable or untrustworthy results. And trust is a big part of this. If people don't trust the output, they're not going to use the tools. To overcome this and make sure you have good data quality, it's very important to implement a strong data governance practice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you always hear, right? Kind of AI is only as good as the data it uses. I think that data quality piece, right? That's pretty well known to most of us. But yeah, I think an example of that, like duplicate account you've got in your CRM system, or missing phone numbers and that annoying stuff. But besides data quality, right? How does the quantity? So I'm talking about like the actual volume or like amount of data we have. Like, how does that play a part in all this?
Well, if we think back to the services CLU project I mentioned a minute ago, it's the more synonyms and sample utterances that I have, the better that the training will be and the better result I'm going to get. Training models, require as much data that is practical to teach them about the variation in whatever it is you're trying to train about.
And get into something that we actually haven't talked about yet, Ray, kind of like the human aspect. So, like, what about the human aspect? Like, how do you address people's, I don't know, I'll call it resistance to change?
Well, Tyler, we are a member of a firm that is a technology firm, a CPA firm, and advisory services firm.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, resistance to change, it's something we have some experience with. And it's a big challenge. A lot of users and companies are skeptical about using AI, or they fear the jobs are going away. So to help with that and to overcome that, I think clear communication about how AI is going to augment, not replace their role, and then providing training to help them feel comfortable with the new tech is a key part of this. Now, ethical concerns are also a big issue, especially if you're doing something in HR or anywhere that is going to be more surfaceable. And this is key when you design these models and you use these and you understand the algorithms used behind them, that you are aware of that. So to address this, companies need to be involved in the development of whatever they're doing with AI. Don't hand it to the consultant and hope for come back in a month and here's your answer. And they must apply their professional judgment to validate AI generated findings. And I'll state that last part again because I think it's really important. Apply professional judgment to validate. I really think this is a key part of AI adoption understanding. It's our professional experience and knowledge that's critical in this new AI world. And I really think it's a key component to successful adoption and use of AI.
yeah, yeah, Ray. I think what you said there is really important for us to remember. Right? Like, humans validating and using their own judgment. Um, yeah. So, all right, look, I want to talk about another example, right? Maybe something practical. I don't know, let's consider like AI's role in fraud detection. So, how does or could AI help identify fraud more comprehensively compared to the traditional human-led efforts, if you will?
Whenever I hear the word fraud detection, I always remember that frog alert versus fraud alert commercial, but I won't go there. So when we consider transactional fraud, AI can play a large role in detection because it enables us to analyze a higher percentage, or if not all transactions, something that would be virtually impossible for humans to do just because it takes too much time. So, AI can quickly sift through large amounts of data. It can identify patterns that are unusual and flag anomalies that could indicate fraudulent activities.
Yeah, okay, I got you. So AI's flagging these things, right? But how do humans actually fit into the process of like once AI flags the potential issues, then what?
Well, once AI flags something that could be a potential issue, it's really up to the human to get involved, bring context, that professional skepticism I talked about, and their ability to make informed decisions based on that AI's output, and then make sure that the fraud cases are thoroughly investigated and properly handled. So AI enhances the scope and accuracy of the detection, but it's still the human judgment that's, I think, key for interpreting these findings and determining the appropriate course of action.
Yeah, yeah, Ray. I think a moment ago you said something about like when considering transactional fraud. So like any other types of fraud that AI could help detect that we should know about?
Other forms of fraud. Well, if you think about the challenge of determining if someone is attempting something fraudulent in an insurance situation. So instead of being transactional, you're kind of just taking what people say, or maybe even a dispute between people or companies. So assuming in that situation you have a deposition, and you with that deposition you now have a transcript, so you now have data. So what if you could take the transcript of those depositions, compare them against each other, and then determine if there are any discrepancies? This could surface issues that very quickly could help guide either the legal team or others that could benefit from that knowledge. So large language models have this capability, and I think that would be a very interesting use case for these purposes.
Humans. So yeah, Ray, I mentioned humans just a minute ago, but I do want to talk some more about this. So what about the humans? So at this point, we've traveled a good distance into our AI framework. So let's talk about how important it is for human oversight to be involved, right, when using AI, and kind of the role of us being the humans, kind of that role we play in validating AI generated content and findings, right?
I think you're talking about human in the loop, that concept.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think that human oversight thing is really important whenever you use any form of AI. AI is great, powerful insights and all, but it's still just a tool that needs to be guided by us, the humans. I think it's important that we maintain control of the process and use AI to enhance our capabilities rather than replace that important professional judgment.
Yeah, Ray, can you give us an example of like how humans could validate the AI findings?
Well, if you use AI and it flags a potential issue of some sorts, and it's up to us to investigate that. And I think the important part is to consider the context, because it may be that you have more context than has been provided to the AI. So you need that to determine the appropriate course of action to take. Human judgment is really important to interpreting all the outputs of AI, identifying any potential bias, and then making decisions that align with the overall ethical standards and business objectives of that company. Now, keep in mind, these biases probably came from humans, since that's where the data tends to come from. I'm just highlighting the need to recognize that and attempt to balance your training data to avoid that bias.
Yeah. All right. All right. So, something else I was just thinking about, Ray. Like lately, I've been seeing a lot about like agentic AI or what AI agents, really. Like, how does this kind of recent advancement in AI relate to the concepts around, I don't know, what you call it, humans in the loop?
Well, AI agents is going to be a challenge to that. I think, instead of the typical flow where you have a prompt by a human, then you get a response, and maybe another prompt, another response, or maybe you move on. Systems are being built today that will take a prompt or some other trigger and then execute a whole string of potentially complex actions where a human may not be in a loop. So I think a key important part of deploying these agents when they become available will be carefully examining each step to make sure you can build trust and assurance that the tasks being performed are appropriate and safe. So yeah, human in the loop, I think, is going to be a key part of this advancement, as is explainability and the ability to audit results.
Yeah. So these AI agents, right? Yeah. They're probably a good segue into the topic of overall risk in AI kind of deployments and usage. So, Ray, can you tell us about several different types of risks that pop up around AI?
Well, risk, beyond the Terminator taking over the world type of risk, a few categories to consider are regulatory risk, intellectual property risk, and personal information risk, as it shows here on the slide. Whether your business is in a highly regulated industry or not, keeping up with all the regulations, such as the EU AI Act, and now we have individual states creating AI laws. It can be difficult to keep up on all that, but it's really important to your business operations. Now, in the areas of IP and personal information risks, those tend to maybe be a little more on the forefront of companies' thoughts, especially when they read the news and hear about leaked intellectual property or other potential leaks of personal information, credit cards, et cetera. So I think a first step that's important would be to understand what the acceptable use clause of any model or platform is that you're planning to use on an AI project. Many of these allow for opting out of using your data to train their models, which, to be honest, I don't know why that's not the default on all of them. I'm not sure why I'd ever want to give my data away, but you got to look at that. So beyond that, it then really comes down to defining acceptable risks versus potential reward when using any tool or platform for AI.
Yeah, it's the old like risk versus reward, right? So, risk versus reward, with AI specifically. Yeah, tell me more about that, Ray.
Well, I mean, this probably applies to most things in life, and you're probably not going to like this answer, but like most business decisions, that balance of risk or reward is going to be unique to each business and whatever their goals and objectives are. So, like most risk, beyond the ethical side of things, it many times boils down to, what value are you gaining by using AI and what harm could it occur if you use AI, and then decide if the value outweighs the harm and what is the likelihood of that harm.
Yeah, I hear you. So basically, there's some risk, right? So what can we do to help mitigate these, I don't know, risk issues and I think you said harm?
So mitigating risks, there are a bunch of things I think we can look at. So first, software uh, many times comes in different versions. You have base version, you have an enterprise grade version of these tools, and they differ with the level of security and control that might be available. So, for example, Microsoft 365 has their Copilot that utilized the same exact model as ChatGPT, but with an important difference. Instead of it being used in a public instance of those models, Microsoft runs their Copilot in your tenant so that it takes advantage of your security. Now, as far as OpenAI is concerned, they have an enterprise edition that incorporates a default opt out of training, which you can do at the lower levels if you remember to have each user do that. And they also have a higher level of compliance with standards such as SOC 2 Type 2. And for those maybe less familiar with those terms, SOC 2 simply refers to a testing related to data security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. And the Type 2 part just simply means over time. So that's better than Type 1, which is just a one-time test. Now, another concept would be to control access. Now, you've probably heard when this first came out, universities and the government and others, oh, we're just banning AI. And I'm not talking about that. I don't think that's such a good idea because people will work past these bans if no alternatives are given. But if you set standards and acceptable use policy in your company about, this is how we use AI effectively and responsibly, these are the tools we've selected that are acceptable, you then can control access to only those tools, and I think that's a good approach. Now, depending on the situation, if you're building your own models and doing your own work and fine tuning, et cetera, an option to make sure that data is safe is to anonymize that data when you do that fine tuning and training. That allows you to use the key elements of whatever data you're using without identifying people and companies and helps protect those situations.
Yeah, Ray said something like anonymized data or anonymizing data. So, Ray, do you simply mean just like removing personal data elements like the social security numbers, names, birth dates, like removing the PII, right, from data so that the details can be used, but without being able to tie it back to like, any specific person or specific entity as well?
That is exactly what I'm talking about. Oh, and one final comment here. There's a need to continuously monitor all of this. There's going to be changes in regulations. There's going to be other advancements in AI, and probably the one that's the sneakiest that you got to really keep an eye on is the inclusion of AI in the software you use every day. It's just going to show up one day, and if you don't know that and understand its use, acceptable use policies, et cetera, that could be dangerous as well. So it all comes down that you've really got to do all of this to stay in step with AI in your company.
All right, Ray, we're getting towards the end of the journey here. Now it's probably a good time to figure out a way to track where we're at. So how can we monitor the, let's say, effectiveness of AI tools, and what metrics or KPIs should we be looking at to make sure that these, that AI is actually delivering the benefits that we hoped it would, or that we expected it to?
Well, you've got people you're accountable to, and you obviously want to get the most out of these tools. So, you've got to have metrics and KPIs to be able to report back to people, yes, this is working or not. So you can track things such as, how much time did we save on routine tasks, or how accurate is the finding that AI generated, or maybe the number of issues or anomalies that we detected compared to how we used to do it. So beyond specific metrics, sometimes it's as simple as just getting user feedback. Is this working? Is it making it more valuable for you or not? And then adjusting as you need to. Now, if depending on the industry you're in, another thing that you can consider is measuring your progress with AI against other companies in the same industry, getting benchmarking reports. They're not available for everybody, obviously, but that's one type of thing that can be useful as well.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, those metrics make sense, right? But in addition to that, like, what about are there specific KPIs that we got to focus on?
Well, I'll give you some examples, but obviously it's going to depend on your company and what you're trying to accomplish. But one thing to consider is the reduction in manual hours spent on a specific data analysis. So let's say you have a monthly board meeting that your job is to produce a bunch of reports, et cetera, and it currently takes you 3 days to gather all that data and do analysis. You institute AI, and now it takes you 3 hours. So there's your KPI you can report on. Or maybe the percentage of transactions that you need to analyze, because of the volume, you were only able to get to about 25% of them. Now with AI, you can get to 85% of them or all of them. So that's a KPI. Or maybe the success rate of AI in identifying some issue or fraud. Maybe before you used to identify about 5% of what you thought was fraud, and now with AI, you're doing some number larger than that, 25%. So the key here is you got to regularly review the KPIs you are using to determine if the tools that you're in the projects that you're using AI for are actually meeting their goals, and are they providing insights into areas where adjustments might need to be made. So for instance, if AI isn't catching as many fraud issues or anomalies as expected, it might just simply mean you need to retrain the model or add additional inputs. So bottom line, continuous monitoring and adjustments are really key to ensuring the tools remain effective and aligned with your company goals.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. As we approach the destination on our orienteering framework journey, I'm going to ask if you can share one last case study or example with us, Ray. Maybe like where AI integration has actually improved outcomes, and what were the specific benefits that were realized.
Well, I could think of one particular project that had to do with digitizing insurance policies. So if you think about insurance policy, the number of them that a company might have and the complexity, that's a challenge getting them done and quickly, et cetera. So we began by building scripts to first contextualize the content of the policy. Then we created and fine-tuned language models to be able to iterate against it. Once we established a structured grid for these policies and integrated the individual relevant variables, the end result was about the ability to automate about 90% of the content. So by streamlining the creation of the documents and the management of them through AI, we found that we were able to achieve significant time savings, obviously reduce a bunch of manual effort, and improve the overall accuracy of the generation of those policies. I think cases like this just highlight how AI can transform a very document-heavy process and make it more efficient and scalable. And it would be challenging to make improvements like that if you did that manually.
And I know I said we're reaching our destination kind of in regard to today's content, but Ray, why is it important for us to view AI implementations as an ongoing journey, and how can we prepare for the future opportunities that may come ahead with AI?
I hope everyone picked up on it today. AI implementations, it's not a one-time thing. The tech is constantly changing, and to get the most out of this, we need to be prepared to adapt and learn continuously. Celebrate those milestones. If you have a successful completion of a pilot project or achieve some improved outcome, celebrate that. It's important because that helps build trust and momentum and, demonstrates the actual value of AI, especially with all those budgets in mind.
Yeah, Rain, at the start of our discussion today, you called the AI landscape something, I don't know, like of rapid evolution. So what can and what should teams do to try and stay ahead as AI continues to rapidly evolve?
Well, kind of the same theme of we all need to stay informed about what's happening in AI, and we need to invest in ongoing training. We need to remain open to experimenting with all these new tools and techniques and find out, which way is working and not for our specific situation. So I think by viewing AI as a journey, which is the whole point of today, we can make sure that we are always at the forefront of these advancements and are continuously finding new ways to add value to our companies.
Yeah, Rain, real quick here, what are the next steps for those who are interested in further exploring implementing AI in their org, and how can Sikich help people, I don't know, I guess, act on what they may have learned here today?
Well, here's the old call to action slide for
Uh-huh.
those interested in exploring AI further. I think I would recommend first starting by identifying a specific area of your business process where you think AI could add the most value. Whether that's, trying to automate one of those dreaded repetitive tasks, or, improving the data analysis that's taking you too long right now or doesn't provide, the level of insight you're looking for, or possibly making it easier to find and summarize the corporate knowledge that we all have. So Sikich offers workshops and resources that can help you get started, including this AI success framework, which provides a structured approach to implementing AI.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. And how can folks kind of make the most of the resources that you just talked about?
Well, with our recently announced Sikich AI Solution Studio, we can help with pilot projects, training, tool selection, or even complete roadmaps to help an organization become an AI first organization and help you take the next step in your journey. The key is to start small, learn, and build from there. AI has the potential to transform every organization, and we're here to help you realize that potential.
And for final thoughts, Ray, like what are the key takeaways that you want folks that are listening here today to remember about implementing AI?
Well, I'd like people to remember that AI is here to empower you, to enhance your capabilities, and allow you to focus on the areas where you can add the most value and really have the most interesting part of what your job is every day. So human oversights, professional judgments, and ethical considerations are irreplaceable. And AI is a tool that helps us do our jobs better, not one that replaces us. And finally, to quote Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, trust is earned, not given. Let's carry that principle forward as we work with AI, ensuring it serves our goals and strengthens trust in everything we do. So Tyler, thank you very much for being today's moderator. Hopefully everyone learned a bit more about how AI can effectively be brought into their company. I'd like now to just spend a couple minutes to talk about the Sikich AI Solution Studio in a bit more detail. So this recent announcement encompasses our experience in the AI space and how we envision guiding the use of AI internally and with our customers. So it includes what we did today to some degree with the orienteering through the AI journey. It's our strategic framework to guided this webinar and guides our process. Then we have our AI and insights opportunity assessment, the methodology design, how do we identify use cases, determine ROI, and highlight any gaps that you might have in talent, tech, or data governance. And speaking about AI governance, it's a framework to ensure that we have scalable, responsible AI implementations that are aligned with any regulatory issues and your company's values. Of course, we have a team that's dedicated to develop customized AI tools and solutions, and we have education programs around training to help clients develop internal expertise and cultivate a culture of innovation. And then finally, we have our own internal AI-driven innovations where we, develop and implement AI for ourselves so that we can optimize our operations so that we can better deliver services more efficiently. And Tyler, if you could just give us a couple comments about workshops.
Yep. So a couple of the resources Ray mentioned are illustrated here on the screen, right? We've got our, data and AI teams half-day strategy workshop. Intent there is providing some personalized recommendations to help your company try and maximize the value of your data. And Sikich also has a co-pilot assessment workshop, which is like day and a half, 2 days. And it's run by our very own John Cole. If you want to learn more about those, happy to connect with you, and you can find our contact info on the website, www.sikich.com.
So thank you everyone again. Have a great day, and hopefully you learned something today.